everyone, Joe here from ActionX. Welcome to What's in the Tube, where it's our show where we review things in the world of television, normally reviewing shows on an episode-by-episode basis, but today we are doing a quick impressions on Marvel's Runaway, only on Hulu. It's been a pretty slow August for me in terms of just the shows I'm watching because it's just the summer lull, that there's not many too consistent shows. You just get like the randoms like Westworld or now House of the Dragon. You had Better Call Saul in there. For me, it was pretty slow. Like there wasn't that much going on. Obviously, I'm saying that I could complain, and then here comes the fall where I have literally like 20 shows to look at and then 5 to review each and every week. I'm so screwed this fall, by the way, everyone. And we start tomorrow. I'm screwed. Anywho, today I watched Runaways. It was, I think, the last pre-Marvel Studios TV show I watched when it was Marvel TV running things. Because if you don't know, let me take you back to a little history lesson. This was pre What's in the Tube time. It was it was still in the days of the Infinity Saga where Phase 3 was kicking ass with each and every installment. We were getting closer to the big ones, Infinity War and Endgame. We were getting closer. And of course, Marvel was thinking about how do we expand on TV. Now, when I say Marvel, I don't mean Marvel Studios run by Kevin Feige at the time. I mean Marvel Television run by Paramount. Small history lesson aside, in the small history lesson, Paramount, piece of shit. Like really old-fashioned. Businessmen did not really work with Kevin Feige a lot during the first 2 phases, which is why I think some of the best creative forces came out in Phase 3 because Kevin Feige had more reign to kind of really do what he wanted to do with the MCU, not being held back by him. But Paramount was still in charge of the other division, which was Marvel TV. I believe the showrunner, not the showrunner, the EP that connects all of them. So like the Netflix stuff and then Hulu, Freeform, everything Marvel TV. So basically, just to clarify, it's Marvel, the Marvel logo, just not in the modern Marvel studio. I know back then it was like, oh, we are connected to the MCU, but we're very independent. Like, we don't need to talk about the Avenger. When in reality, they really could not be farther away from the MCU. And I feel like nowadays that's more appreciated to just not be so tied down to the MCU. I feel like now in the current climate, people prefer it when we have like stuff that that has to be tied down to how does it fit into a larger world. It's like, let it be its own thing. I think the closest example nowadays would be Moon Knight, where yeah, Moon Knight is in the MCU, we know that, but in terms of like what we saw on screen for those 6 weeks, there was literally not a damn mention of anything MCU related, which honestly helped the show help it form its own identity. But we're not talking about Moon Knight here, we're talking about Runaways. Runaways came out at the height of the Marvel TV craze, where like every broadcaster, every platform was trying to have a Marvel show behind its belt. Netflix was killing it with the Netflix shows at the time, there was a downward spiral. ABC had Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Agent Carter's, and Humans. And Hulu was trying to get into the game, so they decided to make Runaways, which I think in my history lesson recall, I know for a while Marvel Studios was trying to make Runaways to happen, but then I think Avengers came out, the first one, and then they decided to scrap the project and just put it on ice for a while, considering the fact that, yeah, we're working with what we got now, so now we can actually move ahead with what we really want to do, because, now the money and the intention are there. So they decided to rework it to a TV show. Now, going into it, when it came out, I literally had no interest in the project. I really did not. It was just I think the beginning of me, like, if it's not a big name, like, premise or something really tying me to what I actually wanted to see from the show, I wouldn't watch it at all. And to be honest with you, like, even like now I'm at the other side of it where I finished the show, I personally don't even imagine myself ever watching this again. And I'm not trying to say that as a bad thing. It's not a bad show. It just doesn't leave for me like that impactfulness. And I feel like that was something that Marvel TV started to lose its luster, where Daredevil came out like, oh my God, amazing. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., great. It's still great for the entire left. I'm not trying to be critical about it. But the more shows you get, the more you start to lose that luster. And yes, I know it's different teams and different writers, different talent working on each and every project. So it's not the same, and they're not trying to be tied down to like one coherent TV world. But you do have to admit that like there was just a little bit of oversaturation, and you can say that about Marvel Studios now, where like yeah, you have 3 to 4 movies and now 3 to 4 TV shows a year now, so like you're getting so much Marvel content. I view it as a plus side. So far, I haven't really felt much of the downward slope, in my opinion. Then again, I'm different from the average fan. You know, average fans tend to burn out after a while. I'm not that type of sort. For me, viewing Runaways was like, I'm not trying to call him a D-lister. I talked to George before the show, and he said that they've had a great comic run. So I know there is an audience there, that there is great source material there. And definitely if they have done multiple series by this point in terms of the comic, then yeah, it's a hit somewhere. But for me, I'm just like, it just doesn't do it for me. Like, it just, and plus I wasn't really in the mood for like another high school centric show or another teen drama. Like I wasn't really in the mood for that in the time. Now, the reason why I went into this show, just to give like my entire back spiel out of the way before I get to the actual review portion of this this actual review. For me, one of the things that really pushed me to actually finally watching the show was Cloak and Dagger, their episode in season 3, the final season. I watched Cloak and Dagger from the beginning because mainly, first of all, I thought the casting was pretty well done. I think Cloak and Dagger, I've seen them in Ultimate Spider-Man the animated series, which I'm like, okay, that's not the best introduction to these characters, but I knew Olivia Holt from my the Disney Channel days, and one of the other leads was on Power Rangers Dino Thunder of all things, and I thought the show was okay. I didn't really thought it was a great show. Maybe I'll talk about that some point down the line. But for me, Cloak and Dagger was watchable, it was enjoyable at times, and I was really bummed it did not get to continue on for more seasons. But even after the cancellation, they did talk about, oh, they're going to be on Runaway Season 3 because it makes sense for those two worlds to be collide. Even though they take place in different states, they are have multiple different backstories. You know, it makes sense because these are still very young people with powers, or being boiled in a world with powers, that it makes sense for them to cross over. And I was like, dope, I need to see that episode. Something happened and I did not get to binging Runaways at the time period. I don't remember what the hell was going on. I think school was getting involved. I really don't know. But now after 3 years after the show ended, and you know that the reason why the show ended was around the time that Marvel Studios was starting to take over. They knew Disney Plus was going to be an avenue for them to produce their own show, but they didn't want to like confuse people with like, okay, here's Marvel TV and then here's Marvel Studios show. They didn't want to confuse them, so they said, we're scrapping them all, we're canceling everything, fuck everything, regardless if it's great or not. It doesn't matter. They just need a fresh start. They need people to understand that, okay, that was then, this is now. I think that's a smart choice. Maybe we'll get to see Runaways down the road again, but okay, I'm getting way too far ahead of myself here. Going back to the actual show. So for me, my first impressions in this quick impression, I thought Runaways was okay. I think it's on the same level, if not a little bit less, with Cloak and Dagger, where it never once really engaged me. I feel like there was a few moments where like I was a little bit surprised, and I was very curious to see where the direction would go. But for me, it kind of felt like there wasn't really much of a, at least for me, I really did not understand much of the conflict at all. I know season 1 had its own conflict, season 2 was a continuation of the first season's conflict, just abided a little bit differently, and then season 3 had its own conflict. Like, I did not really get involved in the main conflict. I feel like for me, and even this is a thread, like the gravitational pull for this show for me was the characters, was this core group of 6, the Runaways, and that, they're like any dysfunctional friend group. They should not work on paper, but they do work because they just complement each other, and they end up being like the social circle they need, the second family, the found family that they really needed to do. And I could relate to that a lot. So that's what was my indicator for actually jumping on with the show, even if I was like I didn't know what I was expecting. And it was always like determined like the title Runaways. And it's like, do they run away in the end of the first episode? Spoilers, they don't. But that was my interpretation of it, where I thought episode 1 was going to end like something tragic happens. They need to just run out of their houses and just start over. I feel like the way they paced the seasons was all right. I don't think it was a perfect pacing, mind you, because it was just... It just felt like some episodes felt like filler at times, and it was just like maybe they could have cut out the fat a little bit more just to like tell a much tighter story. And this wasn't even Hulu trying to do like the 13 episode order. They just gave it 10, 12, and no, 10, 13, and 10. And even those episodes were like, okay, you can cut them out a little bit too short. Like, I'll admit that. I feel like in the first season, and again, before I go any further, I will not be spoiling anything beyond the first episode, so do not worry if you haven't seen Runaways yet. It's all the episodes are available on Hulu, so go check them out. But so for me, like first season wise, there was a lot of disjointment. I think there was like a lot of like discovery, a lot of like, you know, trying to figure out what the story is, what the style of these characters are going to be, what the relationships are going to be. It feels like a lot of the times they were coming up with things as they went along, that there wasn't really much setup, or there really wasn't like a expectation of what you were getting. And to be fair, never should a TV show give you expectation. That's what makes it boring. You want to be surprised, but there's a different type of surprise when you're like, oh, okay, that's all right. And then you're like, whoa, like those are the type of, like, you want to have that wow factor in every episode. Cause again, you're in a mass bubble right now with TV show where like, there's a lot of content. There's a lot of platform, both on network and streaming. There's just so much competition that you cannot afford to have each and every episode not be a banger, but like just keeping the entertainment going. I think it's hard nowadays for shows to do that. Like, I think the last time, like, well, yeah, for me, like that a show's actually kept me interested from start to finish was Stranger Things 4. And that was a you know, a different beast, but still, like, it's still the same thing of like, yeah, you have a lot of competition even with Stranger Things as a franchise. You had at the time of its release, Obi-Wan, you had Miss Marvel, and you know, even though like for me, like I thought those shows were all right, I was like, oh yeah, Stranger Things was like the one that really kept me going. That was my shit right there. But yeah, so going back into it, like with the actual show, I just really could not, like, I could not really get the vibe of it. Also, this is not to be shitty or anything. This was just me with the promotional material. I completely forgot Molly was a character. I was like, oh, who's this girl? Like, is she just a random sixth character? I'm like, oh no, wait, she is the sixth character. Oh fuck, because I thought the Runaways were a team of 5. And like, oh no, they're a team of 6. Oh, she's part of the team. Oh god, I thought she, like, I had such a horrible misconception of it, and I was just like flabbergasted. But that wasn't the wow factor. It was just me being flabbergasted. Like, wow, I didn't pay better attention to the show I'm trying to actually pay attention to. But in terms of like the core conflict between the kids and the parents, I think it's an alright conflict. Like, I know in the comic that what made it unique is like, what better foe to fight as your supervillains than your parents? Like, you know, that's kind of an interesting dilemma. But I don't think they explore the emotional side of it and the emotional ramifications of it, which I do understand, and I do actually appreciate that. The physical threat, like, they're not physical threat. There was never much of a parents versus kids fight. There really wasn't much of that. It was just the tradition, like, we're the adults. We're naturally stronger than you, so you should listen and, like, you know, stop whatever rebellious phase you're going through in your teenage youth. But yeah, but I kept trucking along, like, even though like there was multiple points where like I'm being honest with you. I'm just being honest with you, because again, this is the quick impressions. I'm just being very brash with my thoughts here. I'm just spitballing it out there. There's a lot of points during season 2 where like I really struggled to finish. Like I think I was supposed to finish that show when I was in Texas. I was in the midst of season 2 and I just could not get into it. I really could not. It was a struggle. I had to like turn it off, and like I think I started Everyone Hates Chris while I was on vacation. I was like, bro, this is the opposite of what I should be doing, but I just want something fun and something entertaining, and you know, it wasn't it. Not to say again, like I feel like season 2 was the weakest because it was just an extension of season 1 at points, and then they were trying to like start something new and halfway through, and it was all over the place. It was all over the place. But I need to get to that Cloak and Dagger crossover. I need to see them again after so long. Is it the epilogue I wanted to see? Absolutely not. They obviously wrote that episode with the intention that Runaways was going to get a season 4, and that we can bring them back, and hell, maybe even make them part of the Runaways, since, you know, I'm pretty sure by that point in the production, they knew the show was canceled. So they were like, hey, might as well bring them in, you know, like, you know, give those characters the continuation. I mean, weird things have happened before on television. But so getting into that episode, and also that season being all magic based, was like, I was so confused. I really was. Like, I think the only thing magic related that I actually got into was Doctor Strange and Harry Potter. Like, everything else has been like, you're reaching for the hills here. Like, hey, you gotta really explain this more to me. Like, I really am just, I feel like my dad sometimes. My dad does not like magic at all as like a genre for films or TV shows or anything. So that's, I relate to him on that. Like, I could not get behind it, but I knew I had to get the Cloak and Dagger. I knew I had to get to it. And get into the episode, like, for me, I thought it was great. It was great to see them again. It felt like such a natural inclusion where like they were not overstaying their welcome. Like we didn't constantly get reference to their show every time. Like you had the traditional, like, the Roxxon plant, or you get a flashback to when they got their powers. And those felt natural. Like you understand why they're coming up in the story, but we weren't constantly like every minute like we had to get a scene of them talking about, oh, here's what happened on our show or something like that. Like we didn't need to. And that worked. And it didn't intrude on the Runaway story. Because sometimes with crossover, like you kind of have to upend the entire season plot and focus on this new plot, specifically focusing on the visiting characters, and then having that. It's so difficult to do crossovers nowadays because how do you really balance them? Because for me, if you're doing a crossover, okay, it's cool to have those characters, but remember, you're still on their show. Like at the end of the day, it's their show. They have to still be the focus, the lead, because when the crossover is over, it goes back to being their show. So you can't really upend the show in another show, and if that makes sense. So my point is like that episode did not feel like a Cloak and Dagger episode. It just felt like a Runaways episode with Cloak and Dagger, and I thought that their dynamics worked very well. It was just like two different worlds colliding. They were trying their best to really figure out each other and trying to figure out like what was the best mode, because like obviously Cloak and Dagger have been kind of solo superheroing for at least some sort of indecent amount of time after the events of their show, and the Runaways have been doing their own thing. And I really like that when like you have the two mythologies, the two hero groups or heroes like melding together. It's kind of like when the pseudo Avengers group in Infinity War met the Guardians of the Galaxy. Like those are two completely different leadership style and two completely different style, and it's amusing and interesting to watch how they collide. Oh, the tea got warm. But honestly, yeah, for me, it was great to see those characters again. I loved it. It's still such a shame that that show ended like the way it did. Like like the good thing about these shows, with the exclusion of Luke Cage and Iron Fist, was that all their shows have had some sort of like decent ending. Like it wasn't perfect, but at least it kind of closed the door mostly on their story, and you want to see what's next, but hey, it's not going to hurt you that it didn't end you on a cliffhanger or anything of that sort. So I'm thankful on that front. But getting back into Runaways, like in terms of the characters, like I feel like everyone has their own identity. It goes back to the same thing of like they're all different social group. You have the jock, you have the nerd, you have the emo chick, you have the geeky girl, the popular girl, and then the outsider. Like you kind of have them all be their own unique characteristic, and then but when you have them collide, it should not work on paper, but it does. Like episode 1, like seeing them together in the same room, like for me, like there's absolutely no way either all of you would be friends right now if you didn't grow up with your parents. Like there was absolutely no way. But it works. It works in a kindership, like because they can understand each other because they're kind of outcasts. Like even though they kind of are in cliques or groups, like they've always had the sense of like you don't belong, like you're just waiting to meet your people. And it's weird sometimes, like sometimes opposites attract, like it doesn't have to be like your best friends are like exactly like they could be different types of people. You have similarities, but like there's a lot of differences, but it still works. Like it's one of those unexplained phenomenons, like you just really can't explain what a bond or a relationship. You just really can't explain it. And with them, I think they were able to kind of get that going like much later on than it did at the start. Where for me at the start, it was like it felt like these people are trying to find any excuses to split up whenever they can. Like it just does not work. But then when you get later on to the seasons and then you see them more as characters, make them grow, and have them like actually develop as a team. You get to see like they belong together. They really do, and it always keeps you guessing. You still get the teen drama BS, and that's unavoidable. You got the romances, the love twist, the sudden betrayals. Like it happens. It's cliche, but it works in the benefit of the show at times. And there's not really too much to complain. I think I've only cringed a handful of times, not too many times during the show. And that's a compliment. That's a compliment for me, because considering the fact that I get cringy on a lot of team dramas, and next year I'm doing Degrassi. That's gonna be a lot of fun. But anyway, but for me, in terms for Runaways, I mean, the only other moment I can mention like that's of note is that, and this is a mild spoiler, like the end of season 1, they literally run away. I know, that's a bad joke. That was a bad way to end it. But you know what? They didn't know they were going to come back for more. But, like, you know what? We're just going to leave their fate ambiguous. Kind of like how season 3 ends. Like, what happens to them next? We don't know. But guess what? They're going to get breakfast. Maybe they're still living in the law. Maybe we'll figure out more stuff in the future. Who the hell knows? But, that's for the future. You know, the multiverse is only just beginning. We don't know what the hell is up next for them. But if we get to see them next, I'd be game to see this team again. I'd be game. I wouldn't want to put my hat on, like, let's get a whole new show going, because the thing is that, you know, it's not like Charlie Cox's Daredevil. Like, they did a good job, but they're just not as memorable. I guess that's the best way to describe the show. Like, they're good, but they're not memorable. That's all I'm saying. That's it. It's not for everyone. So for me, my final verdict is that if you're in that need for, like, something to keep you going for a while, something to, like, kind of occupy you for, like, during dinner time, I think this show can entertain you just right. It's definitely not on the must-watch list of any sort of list out there, but it's so enjoyable. And, you know, it'll make you want to see Cloak and Dagger as well, which maybe I'll give that a rewatch soon. Probably not anytime soon, because, again, I got a lot of things to do. But with that being said, I recommend it as terms of, like, just a casual viewer. Nothing more than that. Let me know in the comments below. What did you think of Marvel and Hulu's Runaways? Let's talk about it down below. Let's start the conversation. But until then, this has been What's the Two from ActionX, giving my quick impressions on Marvel's Runaways. If you want to know what we're doing normally on What's the Two besides our quick impressions, currently right now we are doing our High School Musical, the series episode reviews each and every week for season 3. That goes live each and every Fridays after brand new episodes on Wednesdays on Disney+. We also are about to start our DC Stargirl season 3 episode reviews, which starts tomorrow. After brand new episodes premiere on Wednesdays on the CW. So that's gonna be a lot of fun. I have no idea what's gonna happen that season, but guess what? I'm very excited. But again, if you only care about these quick impressions, I hope you enjoy my voice and enjoy me rambling about TV shows without any rhyme or reason, because that's the whole point of quick impression. Like, you just rapid fire, just keep you going, keep you guessing, keep you figuring out what the hell I'm gonna say next. I'm gonna say potatoes suck. Potatoes don't suck. They're really great. But I'm just saying, you never know what I'm going to say next. But again, this has been What's the Two from ActionX. Please subscribe to us on youtube.com/ActionX videos. Ring that bell for notification when our next episode review is live. Please also follow us on social media to stay up to date with any sort of updates we may have for either of our channels. And please also like, favorite, share if you want to. But until we see each other again, stay safe out there, be good to each other, and as always, peace out.